Welcome to Motivational Monday. This is Fred Razak, Senior Trading Strategist here at CMTrading. And today, we're going to be discussing leadership. But before we start, smash the like button, share, and do subscribe, especially if you find value in this presentation. Okay, so leadership most people go to is a leader of a country or a leader of an organization. I'm talking about first, before you get to that, you first have to learn how to lead yourself. You can then work on all the other type of leaderships later. Now, there's a really interesting interview with Jared Kushner. Just recently saw it. And he's asked, has he been surprised when he's met other world leaders? And he kind of said, he chuckled and he said, yeah. He said, there were some leaders that I met and I said, wow, that really makes sense. You know, that really is a very powerful, smart, intellectual person. And then there were some leaders that he met and said, I don't even know how this guy or that woman got that job, right? And we've been in circumstances before where, you know, we've been part of an organization, somebody above us or somebody, you know, across the aisle from us who's pretty much on our same level. And you look around and you say, how did this person get this job? So it's really not the person that's running the job. The job is running by itself, that person just filling the position. And that's really important because I believe, okay, that at any given type of leadership role that you take, whether it's self-leadership, whether it's leading your family, whether it's leading a department in a company, or leading a company or leading a country, whatever the organization that we're talking about, there are transferable skills and there are set qualities that require each one for success. Number one, you need vision. You need to know where you're going. And don't tell me, for example, if we're talking about a financial organization, that we're looking to make money. Looking to make money might be the outcome of what you're doing. For example, 3M has really this very useful mission statement, okay, which is a vision. A mission statement is an example of a vision of why they exist. And they exist to produce products that make things useful to people. And by doing that, they made these sticky notes. You know the sticky notes, those that we put, those yellow notes that we put on computers and we write on a pad and we put it as a stick? That was made by them. They're not into that business. But guess what? In the lab, one of the guys was just doing some work, had to put it on a notepad and didn't want to take some glue and put it manually in it. And he came up with this idea. And 3M was the first company that came out with it. So you have to have some sort of vision, some sort of mission statement to why you exist. Not the outcome. Why do you exist as a person? Why do you exist as a family? Why do you exist as a country? Right? Those are things that you need to answer. Number one, and very important underneath that, is integrity. You have to have honesty and a set principles of who you are and what other people could know what to expect from you. Okay, so imagine this. If I punish one of my children for random behavior that they do, completely random, okay? Kid doesn't know what he's doing right, what he's doing wrong. He just thinks he's doing wrong all the time. However, if there's one or three very unique, very specific items that I punish the child for, if they do it, they know what to expect, or to reward them for any specific behavior, right? They know what to expect. And guess what? If I reward them or punish them for these given set items, they'll then know to be in a much safer space. They know what to expect from myself and from themselves, right? Because there's got to be a set of principles. Everybody has to know who you're playing with, okay? If you've ever been working for an organization where everything was irrational. There was one time I was working for someone some years ago and they would tell me to do this and I would do this. And then they would reprimand me for doing this. It was completely gaslighting, right? And I would say, what are you talking about? You told me to do this. And then they would say, you're arguing with me. And I just couldn't argue. There was nothing I could do that was right? And it was a very toxic environment. And as a result, the guy didn't succeed, okay? He succeeded on himself, but he never succeeded really. And that's a real shame because it's not having the right set of principles that led to this. Number two, accountability. A leader needs to know how to take accountability for their behavior, for their organizational behavior. And I could think of several instances in the past where I've worked for very successful individuals and they took accountability. They said, hey, I was wrong. I was wrong. What's wrong with being wrong? We are human. And if you show people around you, and especially in your family, okay, if you show your kids, I did something wrong, I made a mistake, that is a tremendous skill of leadership because you're saying I'm human and it's okay. Guess what? If you do that, your children will also grow up saying, hey, I made a mistake. they take accountability, and they move on. And they could then fix it. Because if you don't accept the fact that you've made a mistake, how do you expect your kids to accept the fact that they've made a mistake, right? So this is really very important quality of taking accountability, especially if you're head of an organization. And that leads to the next one, which is really very important, responsibility. Now, it's not just responsibility for yourself, but it's responsibility for the people around you, okay? You don't live in a vacuum. You don't live by yourself. You're part of a community. You're part of a family. You're part of an organization. You have the responsibility to check up on people, to see how they're doing. Hey, I saw that, you were out a few days. You weren't feeling well. Is everything okay? Just simple acts of kindness like that, just take it that much further, because especially if you're in a leadership role, if you're head of an organization or a team, you check in with your people. That then makes them much more committed to your cause, because you've taken it from a rational responsibility to an emotional responsibility. That's a very, very important quality. Number 4 or 5, I don't remember anymore, trust. Trust. If the people around you have the trust that if they've made a mistake, it's okay, and there's no crazy repercussions. And I'm not talking about, burning up the house or, bringing down the company. I'm talking about just regular stuff that they made a mistake and things happen, okay? There was actually something that happened at CMTrading some long time ago where there was an employee on a certain given time of day, didn't know any better, but made an honest mistake that affected the entire company, almost brought down the company down, okay, completely. And I remember the leadership of the company was not to get on the person's case. They made a simple mistake, and they did not know, okay? Any one of us could have done the mistake, even the directors themselves. But the person wasn't reprimanded for it. But it made such an impression on myself and some of the other people around us that, hey, it's okay to make a mistake, an honest mistake, it's fine. And that is something that adds value to the organization, because then that makes the place a safe place to actually grow in. Number 5 or 6, don't remember it, but we're going to play this game of 5 or 6, so be on the safe side. Communication. Communication is so important, to communicate feelings. That's something that most men in today's day and age don't know how to communicate. Whether you're Western, whether you're European, whether you're Middle Eastern, whatever the culture you is, for some reason, men have been, put in this pedestal not to have feelings, and it's not true. Men have to know how to communicate. Women know how to communicate fantastically because they're women. They're emotional beings, so they are well aware of their emotions, but men have no idea. However, there has been some people in history that we could take note of, some public figures that really have been great in communicating. And number 1 on the top of the list is Ronald Reagan, one of my favorite presidents. Whether it was good, whether it was bad, whether he handled the economy well, whether his world economics was whatever argument you want to make, no one can argue that Ronald Reagan was par excellence, probably the best communicator any of us has ever seen, and to the point that his emissaries, that his enemies, that his opponents always just, loved him because he was so good at it. He was so entertaining. He was so charming. He was so laughable at whatever circumstance we were doing. And he had those lines just ready at the point. And he was just really good. Mind you, before he became president, long time before that, before he was governor, he was an actor. So he learned how to communicate very early on in his career, and that really, I think, aided him in that communication skills. And these are not skills that we cannot acquire. These are definitely, some people have them naturally, but these are skills that all of us can acquire. Number 6 or 7, not even sure, but let's go with it, okay? Empathy. A leader has to show empathy. If you see your child having a hard time and they're acting out just because they're having a hard time, how could you not? How could you, punish them in that state? They're not doing it because they're being malicious or they're being evil or they're being naughty. They're doing it because they're in pain. Sometimes people are in pain, and we have to really recognize that. Whether it's yourself, whether it's another person or a colleague, reach out to them. Hey, I see you're having a hard day. What's going on? Everything all right? Just tap into it. Wow, that's a hard feeling to really have. That's empathy. Empathy is, I feel what you're going through. I actually can relate to what you're going through. It's a very, very important tool because when you're empathetic to whoever you are around you, they feel your concern, they feel that love, they feel that connection. And that's what it's all about. Organizations are just building connections ultimately. Yes, you could tell me organizations are there to make money. Yeah, in the long run, yes, they're there to make money. But in the short run, they're there to create connection. And the more connection, the deeper connections you are, the more successful it will be. The next qualities, 6, 7, or 8, whatever you want to call it, is knowing how to set the standard higher. One of the most useful experiences I've ever had was working under a billionaire. Okay, today he's a billionaire. When I worked for him, he was a millionaire, but today he's a billionaire. And his name is Vinny Viola. And every single transition from year to year, I would see just the standard lifted up. The standard just lifted up every year. Every year. There was expectations of himself, the expectations of the organization was just increased every single year. It was amazing. It was amazing to see the transformation because here was a very talented man to begin with. He was a very smart, tremendous integrity, tremendous self-discipline, but he always expected more of himself. And he held himself to a higher standard. He didn't hold everybody else to a higher standard, but he held himself to a higher standard. But by doing that, we were inspired by seeing this person and working for this person. And that's the next quality, is a leader has to inspire their people. That's just very, if you look back at some of the most historic speeches that ever were, there are tidbits that are taken off from Churchill, from Roosevelt, from major world leaders that they didn't realize at the time that they were setting such inspirational speeches that we still listen to today. And this is really just, I'm getting emotional just thinking about it because, here's this person who lived in completely different circumstances, long time ago, and we're still inspired to our daily lives today on a speech that they gave to their people under the circumstances that they were in. And that is something of legacy. And a leader leaves over a legacy that I think other people don't. A regular person doesn't. And you could be a leader to your family. Like I said, you could be a leader to yourself. You could be a leader to an organization. But obviously your family is probably the most important thing. And, there's always that grandfather or that grandmother or someone specific in the family that did something unique and something that stood out. And that ends up, being carried down to the children, grandchildren, and so on and so forth. And I think that that's really a very important outcome of someone that's self-led and a big leader. We'll see you here next week on Motivational Mondays. Thank you for joining us.